Why do empaths attract narcissists? The answer is not what most people think. Most people believe it happens because empaths are weak and narcissists are strong. That is a comforting story because it makes the world simple. But it is also wrong. The reality is that narcissists are not searching for weakness. They are searching for value. They are searching for energy, attention, admiration, emotional investment, forgiveness, patience, and understanding. And where do they find those qualities in abundance? They find them in people who naturally give them away. Think about it. A narcissist walks into a room and begins scanning for opportunities. Not consciously in every case, but psychologically. They are looking for people who respond quickly, people who care deeply, people who overlook flaws, people who believe everyone deserves another chance. They are looking for people who will continue investing, even when the return becomes smaller and smaller. And that is where the empath enters the story. The empath sees potential where others see warning signs. The empath sees pain behind arrogance. The empath sees insecurity behind control. The empath sees fear behind anger. While everyone else is stepping back, the empath is stepping closer. At first, this looks like a strength, and in many situations, it absolutely is. The ability to understand people is one of the most powerful human abilities. The ability to care is a gift. The ability to forgive can transform lives. But every strength becomes a vulnerability when it is applied without boundaries. The same empathy that allows you to heal healthy relationships can trap you inside unhealthy ones. The same compassion that helps people grow can be used against you by people who have no intention of growing. The same willingness to understand can become an endless excuse-making machine, and this is where the cycle begins. The narcissist presents a carefully constructed image: confidence, charm, certainty. They seem different. They seem magnetic. They seem to understand exactly what to say and exactly when to say it. The empath feels seen. The narcissist feels supplied. Both people experience something powerful, but for very different reasons. The empath believes a deep connection is forming. The narcissist believes a reliable source of emotional fuel has been found. At the beginning, everything feels extraordinary. Attention is abundant. Validation is constant. Affection appears limitless. The empath feels chosen, special, unique. But what many people fail to recognize is that manipulation rarely begins with cruelty. It begins with reward. Human beings become attached to what rewards them. The narcissist understands this, whether consciously or unconsciously. They create emotional highs that become difficult to forget. They establish a standard that later becomes impossible to maintain. Then something changes. The attention becomes inconsistent. The affection becomes conditional. The approval becomes harder to earn. And now the empath enters a dangerous psychological trap because instead of asking, "Why am I being treated differently?" they ask, "How do I get back what we had?" That question changes everything. Now the empath is no longer evaluating the relationship. They are chasing it. They are trying harder, giving more, explaining more, forgiving more, sacrificing more. The narcissist does not necessarily win because they are stronger. They win because the empath refuses to stop investing. This is one of the most painful truths anyone can learn. Many empaths are not trapped because they cannot see the problem. They are trapped because they can see the pain behind the problem. They understand the childhood wound. They understand the insecurity. They understand the fear. They understand the loneliness. And because they understand it, they keep staying. But understanding someone is not the same thing as excusing them. Compassion does not require self-destruction. Empathy does not require self-sacrifice. Love does not require abandoning yourself. Ride that again. Love does not require abandoning yourself. The greatest mistake many empaths make is believing that if they can understand someone deeply enough, they can save them. But people are not changed by being understood. People are changed when they choose to change. And no amount of empathy can substitute for another person's willingness to take responsibility. You cannot heal someone who is committed to remaining wounded. You cannot rescue someone who refuses accountability. You cannot love someone into becoming a different person. That realization hurts because it destroys a fantasy, but it also creates freedom. The moment an empath understands that their value is not measured by how much pain they can endure, everything begins to change. The moment they realize that boundaries are not selfish, everything begins to change. The moment they understand that protecting their energy is not cruelty, everything begins to change. Because healthy people do not require unlimited access to you. Healthy people respect limits. Healthy people care about reciprocity. Healthy people do not punish you for having needs. Healthy people do not demand that you disappear so they can feel important. The solution is not becoming less empathetic. The solution is becoming more discerning. Keep your compassion, keep your kindness, keep your ability to understand people, but combine those gifts with standards. Combine them with self-respect. Combine them with boundaries that are strong enough to protect what is valuable, because the goal is not to stop caring. The goal is to care wisely. A locked door does not mean a house lacks value. It means the owner understands value. A boundary does not mean a person lacks love. It means they understand love's limits. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is this: the opposite of narcissism is not empathy. The opposite of narcissism is healthy self-awareness. An empath who lacks self-awareness can be manipulated. An empath who lacks boundaries can be exploited. An empath who ignores their own needs can become trapped. But an empath who combines compassion with strength becomes extraordinarily difficult to control. That person still listens, still understands, still cares, but they no longer confuse suffering with loyalty. They no longer confuse sacrifice with love. They no longer confuse endless patience with virtue. They recognize that the healthiest relationships are not built on one person giving and another person taking. They are built on mutual respect, mutual effort, mutual responsibility. And when an empath finally learns that lesson, something remarkable happens. They stop attracting the same kinds of relationships. Not because narcissists disappear, but because narcissists stop finding an open door. The empath remains kind. The empath remains caring. The empath remains compassionate. But now those qualities are protected by wisdom. And wisdom is what transforms empathy from a vulnerability into a superpower. There is another reason empaths repeatedly find themselves entangled with narcissistic personalities. And it is a reason that few people are willing to confront because it requires brutal honesty. Many empaths have spent so much of their lives understanding everyone else that they have never learned to fully understand themselves. They can read a room in seconds. They can sense emotional shifts before anyone says a word. They can detect disappointment hidden behind a smile. They can recognize pain hidden behind anger. Yet when it comes to their own emotional needs, their own fears, their own unresolved wounds, they often become surprisingly blind. Why? Because focusing on others can become a distraction from focusing on yourself. And sometimes helping people feels easier than healing yourself. Think about that. It is often easier to rescue someone else than it is to face your own loneliness. It is often easier to solve another person's problems than it is to confront your own insecurities. It is often easier to become needed than it is to become truly known. This creates a dangerous dynamic. The empath begins to derive identity from being the helper, the fixer, the healer, the supporter, the person who never gives up on people. At first glance, these seem like admirable qualities. And they are. Until they become your entire identity, because the moment your worth becomes attached to saving people, you become vulnerable to anyone who constantly needs saving and who always seems to need saving. The narcissist. There is always another crisis, another misunderstanding, another explanation, another excuse, another promise, another reason why things will be different next time. The finish line keeps moving. The breakthrough is always just around the corner. The transformation is always about to happen. And because the empath believes in potential, they stay focused on who the narcissist could become rather than who they consistently are. This is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make, not financially, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. Because relationships are not built on potential. They are built on patterns. Let that sink in. Relationships are not built on potential. They are built on patterns. Anyone can promise. Anyone can explain. Anyone can apologize. Anyone can describe the person they want to become. The real question is simpler. What pattern are they creating? What happens repeatedly? What happens consistently? What happens when nobody is watching? What happens when they do not get what they want? Patterns reveal reality. Words reveal intention. And when words and patterns disagree, patterns tell the truth. This is where many empaths become trapped. They are listening to promises while ignoring patterns, listening to explanations while ignoring behavior, listening to future possibilities while ignoring present reality. The narcissist may say all the right things. They may appear deeply self-aware. They may describe their flaws with remarkable precision. They may even acknowledge the damage they have caused. But awareness without change is not growth. Understanding a problem is not the same thing as solving it. Talking about accountability is not accountability. Many people can describe their dysfunction perfectly. Far fewer people are willing to transform it. The empath hears insight and mistakes it for progress. The narcissist provides understanding but not action, and the cycle continues. Months become years. Years become decades. The empath continues investing in a future that never arrives. Meanwhile, something important begins to disappear. Confidence, energy, joy, clarity, not all at once, slowly, almost invisibly. That is what makes it dangerous. A dramatic loss gets your attention. A gradual loss becomes your normal. You adjust, you adapt, you tolerate, you compromise, you lower expectations. You tell yourself that every relationship has challenges. You tell yourself nobody is perfect. You tell yourself things could be worse. And little by little, the standard for what you accept keeps dropping until one day you look around and barely recognize the life you have built. You barely recognize the person you have become. You remember a version of yourself that laughed more, trusted more, dreamed more, created more, lived more freely. And now your energy is being consumed by survival. Consumed by management, consumed by emotional damage control, consumed by trying to maintain peace in a system designed to keep you off balance. This is the hidden cost that people rarely discuss. The greatest loss is not the relationship. The greatest loss is often yourself, because when someone constantly requires your attention, your understanding, your forgiveness, your patience, and your emotional labor, there is less and less left for you. You become emotionally exhausted, and exhaustion changes perception. Exhausted people stop asking powerful questions. Exhausted people stop challenging assumptions. Exhausted people stop evaluating situations clearly. They focus on getting through the day, and that is exactly why emotional depletion is so dangerous. A tired mind accepts what an energized mind would reject. A depleted person tolerates what a healthy person would question. A confused person stays in situations that a clear person would leave. This is why recovery begins with something that sounds almost too simple, distant. Not necessarily physical distance, although sometimes that is necessary. Psychological distance. The ability to step back and observe, to stop participating long enough to see clearly. Because clarity rarely arrives while you are standing in the middle of chaos. Clarity often arrives when you step outside of it, when you stop defending, stop explaining, stop justifying. Stop chasing understanding from someone committed to misunderstanding you. And suddenly patterns become obvious. You begin noticing things you could not see before. The conversation was never actually about solving problems. It was about maintaining control. The argument was never actually about the issue. It was about power. The apology was never actually about accountability. It was about resetting access. The promise was never actually about change. It was about preserving the relationship on existing terms. These realizations can be painful, not because they are complicated, because they are simple. And simple truths often hurt the most. The empath begins to realize they were carrying responsibilities that never belonged to them. Managing another person's emotions, managing another person's self-esteem, managing another person's consequences, managing another person's growth. And eventually they ask a life-changing question. What if none of this was ever my responsibility? That question changes everything because it shifts the focus away from fixing others and back toward understanding yourself, back toward your own healing, back toward your own future, back toward the parts of yourself that have been neglected while you were busy rescuing everyone else. And that is where true transformation begins. Not when the narcissist changes, not when they finally understand, not when they finally appreciate you, not when they finally become the person you hoped they would be. Transformation begins when you stop waiting, when you stop postponing your life, when you stop attaching your happiness to another person's growth, when you stop believing your purpose is to carry burdens that were never yours to carry. Because the most powerful realization an empath can have is this: your ability to love others should never require abandoning yourself. The moment you understand that, your entire life begins to move in a different direction.